blast can be produced by electricity, generated by renewable energies such as wind power. Another low-carbon hydrogen would be based on electricity from nuclear power plants. In both cases, it is produced by electrolysis, which uses an electrical current to separate the hydrogen from oxygen in water. The hydrogen obtained from this process as a gas is 11 times lighter than air and must be stored. There are several techniques: high pressure storage in gaseous form, storage at a very low temperature in liquid form, and storage in solid form with other materials. This storage capacity would make it possible to keep surplus production from renewable energies. Converted back into electricity by a fuel cell, hydrogen would also help to replace fossil fuels in long-distance transport such as trucks, trains, or even planes. And eventually, it can replace coal in industries such as steel that require a lot of heat. 1 kg of hydrogen releases about 3 times more energy than 1 kg of gas. But to widen its use, the cost of producing green hydrogen will have to drop. Currently, it costs 2 to 3 times more than grey hydrogen. Its widespread use will also depend on the development of low-carbon electricity production and the fuel cell.
Everyone's busy finding what's trending. You're busy finding out why. India Today, for those who research before reacting. Download the India Today app now.
A flagship event for foldables, Samsung Galaxy Unpacked, on Tech Today. Also, India's digital commerce or e-commerce scene is all about to change, and we've got you covered on this episode. Also, we are broadcasting from this iconic venue in Bengaluru, the Opera House. It's an action-packed episode, and I am your host, Aayush Ailawadi. This is Tech Today. Oh, we've begun already. We're not here to play games. We're actually here to tell you all about Samsung Galaxy Unpacked, and it's been about these two showstoppers, the new Z Flip 4 and the Z Fold 4. Samsung foldable season's here, but how did we get here? Let's rewind.
Well, it looks like we've got mail on Tech Today. And you know what we do when we get a personalized box like this? We end up unboxing it. So let's do that.
Now, the first question that comes to mind when you look at these new launches is, how different are they from last year's launches? And just like the iPhone, there's very incremental changes when you've already made a good product. The Fold 3, the Fold 4 had a bunch of industry-first features like water resistance and, of course, flagship processors. This time, they've obviously updated to this year's version, but there are a few things that we liked and a few things that we were actually left wishing for, and that's what we're going to start with. So we're going to start off with the Fold 4 and the Fold 3. Just your initial impressions looking at it, I'll tell you 2 or 3 things that have really changed with this phone. Look at the camera sensors, and you can automatically tell that the Fold 4 has much bigger sensors, so hopefully that translates to better photography. Another thing about the phone that I have to mention is that the Fold 3 was a great device, but every time you tried opening it, it wasn't as easy to actually slip your finger in and open it. This is like a clamshell which is waiting to be opened. It's a lot more handleable and it's a lot easier to open. Coming back to the camera, this is a much improved, bigger sensor. Now the triple camera setup at the back has gotten a lot bigger and a lot better. So let me make it easier for you. There's a whole bunch of cameras, 3 here, 1 over here, and then of course the one on the inside display. Let's start off with this triple camera setup at the back. It's a 50 megapixel main sensor with OIS, a 12 megapixel ultra wide sensor with a 123-degree field of view. Then there's a telephoto sensor with OIS as well. That's 10 megapixels. Now let's talk about the outer front camera. That's obviously when you've shut the phone closed and you're using the external display. That's a 10 megapixel sensor and it's decent at selfies. The inner front camera is the one which last time we were not very pleased with. That's a 4 megapixel under display sensor. The display does a decent job. The minute you turn it on, gives you an option. Do you want to look natural or do you want to get much brighter? In TV, we want to look brighter very often, but let's go natural over here and have a look at how it goes. The minute you open it up, I mean, it's a striking display. So it does a good job at representing that. But then, of course, you open it up, and then when you're using this camera, I know that there was a lot of talk about how this camera was not the best the last time around, but it's pretty much hidden even now. And if you take a photo, what I love about it is, look, it's not the best camera, but the fact that there's a lot of processing happening over here, you have an extra camera out there, is good enough for me. There's flex mode here, so much more multitasking is fascinating. And then, of course, you have the cameras at the back. In terms of the triple camera setup at the back, I've already turned it on. And if I want to take a nice photo of the Samsung Opera House, well, then here goes. And honestly, anything on this display looks really good. I'm going to actually compare this to the iPhone 13 Pro and perhaps the S22 Ultra from the Samsung stable. But I think what they are saying with this is interesting, because they're saying that there will be better nightography or night photography. And with bigger sensors, it's just logical that they will have a lot more light coming in. It'll be a clearer picture. And it'll be interesting to see how this plays out when we have a long-term, in-depth review of the Fold 4. Like last year, this year as well, the Z Fold 4 and the Flip 4 are powered by the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which is a flagship processor. It doesn't get better than that, top of the heap, and that is what comes with this as well, so you can expect some good performance. Of course, it comes with 12 gigs of RAM, and I think that's good enough for your multitasking capabilities, and there's a lot of them in terms of Samsung software that they've tried to introduce with this enhanced multitasking capabilities than even the last year's version. But when you're talking about foldables, the main thing you need to talk about if you're a tech geek is the displays, and this has a bunch of them. So it comes with a 7.6-inch QXGA Plus Dynamic AMOLED 2X display. That's this one, the main one on the inside. It supports 120 Hz of a refresh rate and can dynamically switch from 1 Hz to 120 Hz. That can really help it save some battery. But it's going to need a lot more battery, because when you flip this phone close, you have a smaller outer screen. And frankly, it does the job most of the time. You don't even need to open it if you want to just use this as a quick calling or texting device. The smaller outer screen is a 6.2-inch HD Plus Dynamic AMOLED panel. And again, it has a 120 Hz refresh rate, but it can only go down to 48 Hz. What that means is that it is not going to be able to save as much battery perhaps as the inner display. But I think this one does quite a decent job. And the fact that you have several 120 Hz displays on a phone when many manufacturers aren't even giving you 120 Hz, I think that is a very interesting piece of information. You know, I'm quite certain that the Fold 4 is much lighter than last year's model, and that makes a big difference. This is the only device that you've put in your pocket. It's quite large, and that's because it also doubles up as your multitasking device, maybe a tablet as well. I didn't use my mini tablet for the longest time when I was using the Fold 3. I think this is going to do just that yet again. So if it's lighter, it's even better. One thing which is evident with the Fold still is the crease, and well, I think as foldable tech gets better, this will become less evident. But if you're in a very bright scene, then of course, at some angles, this is quite evident, blatantly out there. But if you're watching the night, or if you're on an aircraft watching your favorite show, then most of the times you can't even spot it. Look, you're getting a foldable, and we need to get over not liking a crease when your glass is actually folding. It's good tech, and that's what we like at Tech Today. Now, since we're talking about the Fold 4, how could we ignore this strikingly Bora purple Flip 4? There's a lot you can do with this on flex mode, and Samsung's been talking about it even with the previous Flip. But the fact that you can use it as a vlogging device with the front camera, you can actually split the screen into two. Again, multitasking capabilities as well. That's all great. It comes with a Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 flagship processor. And then the camera system is a double camera system at the back. So the rear camera is a 12 megapixel main camera with OIS and a second 12 megapixel ultra wide camera with a 123-degree field of view. There's also a 10 megapixel front camera, and that's what you can use for selfies and video calls. Maybe if that was a little better, it would be more interesting to make this a vlogging device, but a 10 megapixel camera perhaps will do the job as well. Look, something that Samsung's trying to work on with the Flex, and there was a lot of developers who tried doing it with the last model, is this external display. I think there's a lot more you can do with it. it's still limited in terms of functionality. If you're remembering the Moto Razr of old, then you can do basic things on this, but now you can also use this for portrait mode photography. And that's something we'll want to test extensively on Tech Today. So this is a tiny 1.9-inch Super AMOLED display, and I think this is quite useful yet again. When you open the phone, this foldable display is what I want to tell you about. The Flip 4 comes with a 6.7-inch FHD Plus dynamic AMOLED outer screen, and of course that has a 120Hz adaptive refresh rate. There's a 3700 mAh battery, and of course you have a 25-watt wire charging, and there's wireless charging as well. Look, these are only our initial impressions of the Flip 4 and the Fold 4, two flagship premium foldable devices that we were very excited about, and you've seen them first on Tech Today. If you want to know about the India pricing, because that's not out yet, the international pricing is around the same as last year, but for the India pricing, you have to log on to the Business Today website. So that's our first look of the Flip 4 and the Fold 4 at Samsung Galaxy Unpacked. You've seen it first on Tech Today, but like I said, this is evolving tech, and last year's models were fantastic. It's gotten incrementally better, so if you're in the market for a new foldable, I had told you last week to wait, and now's the time to maybe consider an upgrade. Look, we're going to get you an in-depth review very soon, tell you about the cameras, tell you about the performance, but this was just our initial impressions. Look, one thing I can say for certain is these are crowd pullers and conversation starters. I put this up on my Instagram stories and everyone's asking about them. So I had a few questions, and so I went to Team Samsung and I asked them a bunch of things. Here's what they had to say. There's a lot of tech companies around the world are investing in the ecosystem. Now, the Galaxy ecosystem is something you guys have spoken about at today's event as well. When we put all these products together, how do you see it playing out? And especially from a sales and marketing perspective, unique to India, what are you guys doing to make it more of an incentive for me to want to join the Galaxy ecosystem? With prices, you have to give us a nice detailed answer.
Well, thank you very much for putting this question. You know, ecosystem is very, very important. We believe that bringing the entire Galaxy to life, ecosystem plays a very, very pivotal role. Today, you walk with the Galaxy, you play with the Galaxy, you move with the Galaxy. So, you know, Galaxy is in your life, and how we can integrate it better in your connectivity first, to sharing of content. Third, consistency have been a key pillar of our multi-device experience, which we have been building, from watch to buds to tablet to laptops and phones. So there is a lot which we have done around that, and we are very, very happy that today consumers are using it. On the market announcement, I will say that you need to wait a little more. Next week, we will be announcing some new offers and promotions, and we will, through your medium, go first to the market.
Gaming consoles, curved displays, rotating displays, foldable phones, smart fridges. My God, this is tech geek paradise. But what if I told you that all of these devices that you purchase often on e-commerce portals, there's going to be a new network in India. And just like in 2016, when UPI changed the digital payment scene in India, well, something like that is going to happen in the e-commerce world as well. That's on the second half of the show. I'll see you after a short commercial break.
Rains in Seoul are devastating. As many as 9 people have died so far. 17 injured and 7 are missing. 500 people have been evacuated. The city expressed 300 millimeters, that is 11.8 inches of rain. The forecasters have warned for more mudslides, floods and rains. Life has completely come to a standstill, with metro stations, railway stations and other services being temporarily suspended. South Korea's Interior Ministry has released a statement that at least 570 people lost their homes and 2,670 buildings were flooded. The ministry also said that workers on Wednesday afternoon had finished restoring more than 90% of 2,800 buildings, homes, roads and other facilities in the capital area that had been prioritized in the emergency recovery plans. It is not only South Korea, but other countries are also facing heavy rains, or rather a repercussion of climate change. According to the Intergovernmental Panel, summer monsoon is expected to grow stronger and more unpredictable. Several countries in East Asia are recording high rainfall in just one day. Japan, Pakistan have also experienced intense rainfall lately. An unprecedented rise in rainfall has been recorded in Bhutan, Bangladesh, Northeast India, Myanmar and Nepal. Heavy rainfall can be seen in India as well, in the states of Rajasthan, Maharashtra, Hyderabad, Assam and Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh, Bihar, East and West Uttar Pradesh. According to nature.com, extreme precipitation is expected to intensify with global warming over large parts of the globe, as the concentration of atmospheric water vapor, which supplies the water for precipitation, increases in proportion to the saturation concentrations at the rate of about 6 to 7% per degree rise in temperature, according to the thermodynamic Clausius-Clapeyron relationship. A recent study also substantiates that daily extreme precipitation changes in relation to
Welcome back to Tech Today. I'm your host Aayush Ailawadi. Now, a few years ago, we saw a digital payments revolution in India in the form of UPI. The Indian government has similar plans in the e-commerce space. They're calling it ONDC, the Open Network for Digital Commerce. And the man behind this revolution is joining us on the show today, Mr. T. Koshi, CEO at ONDC. Thank you so much for joining us on Tech Today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, Aayush.
Mr. Koshi, I want to dive right in. Now, a lot of people are calling this the UPI of e-commerce in India. But if you could explain to us what the ONDC is all about, how does this level the playing field in the e-commerce world?
As you're aware that the current model of e-commerce is a very platform-centric approach where each of the platforms that are operating in the market use proprietary technology, making the whole thing, if I use the word, a walled garden. That means a seller on one platform can only talk to the buyer on one platform, and the buyer on that platform can only see the seller on the other side, the same platform. So if a seller or merchant wants to be in both platforms, he will have to have processes and technology, everything that matches with both platforms. So that becomes a costly affair. So what we intend to do in the ONDC world is that if I use simple words like we're unbundling and making interoperable. So what does it try to do is, with the way the technology is architectured, every seller will be visible to every buyer in all the platforms, and every buyer in each platform will be able to discover any seller. So it is no more the scale of any of the application that drives. It is a specialization and innovation. What each seller has to offer and what buyer wants to buy will be the determinant factor, not that any platform has a proprietary audience of sellers and buyers.
Interesting, Mr. Koshi. Now, in terms of implementation, I know this has started off as a pilot project in a few cities, and then you will scale this up subsequently. But when does the ONDC open up for public use? When can the small retailers and all customers across the country actually start reaping the benefits of the technology that is ONDC?
While you have very correctly articulated the ambition, as you're aware, in a country like ours with millions of sellers and billions of buyers, the reach will take its time. But that doesn't mean
और आज आपके रुके हुए बहुत सारे काम भी पूरे होंगे, साथ ही साथ आज आपको धन का लाभ होता हुआ
platform in itself. What it means, that network means that as more and more sellers and buyers start using, the network grows. So it's an organic growth possibility. So when we started in end of April, 29th of April and went in May, June, we wanted to see how the unbundled buyer-seller logistics situation will work. So we attempted it in 5 cities with multiple sellers and buyer and logistics firm, doing transaction with the real sellers and real buyers, but only by invitation. So what we recommended to each of the sellers is bring your normal customers onto the network, let them do the normal buying, and give you the feedback and refine it. So we started with 2 difficult categories, which is food and grocery in 5 cities. And over in the last 2 months, we have been enhancing this presence. Now we are in 36 cities and another 10 cities is going to go live in the next 2-3 days time, with again limited buyers and limited sellers, which is giving us a lot of understanding of the nuances of each of the different parts of the country. And we are also been gradually adding new categories. So our next big event that we are planning by end of the month or the beginning of next month, we are just finalizing the dates and details, is to make it open to public in a limited fashion. So our intention is that, and like I said, by end of the month or on the first couple of days of the next month, we will open it for the public in one metro and observe how it is being accepted and adopted. And with that learning, we will just now keep on going, making it open to more and more cities. In the same time, that is a strategy of going deeper in cities. At the same time, to encourage and stimulate the adoption, we are also in the process of, having the early adopters jump into this in practically every city is possible. And as we have some larger seller platforms coming online, you might have already heard about Stamp Deal signing up and a number of other such seller apps coming in live with a large number of sellers from large number of cities, including CSC, Citizen Service Center and SignChat, and a variety of seller applications are working to get different domains and different categories activated. So by end of this year, you will see presence in a large number of cities, which will exponentially grow, because the beauty about a network is the network effect. Network effect will drive the adoption faster, and by next year we expect a very, very broad adoption, both seller side and buyer side.
Since we're talking about digital monopolies, two companies that I have to talk about are Flipkart and Amazon. These are companies that enjoy a massive market share respectively here in India. Should they be worried about ONDC's plan, or do they stand to benefit in any way from the introduction of ONDC?
Let me just look at it a little deeper, Aayush. I understand that this 2 or 3, and probably as some predicted, in the next 2 or 3 years, 4 entities can technically have 90% of the market share. But if you really look at what's the penetration of digital commerce in India, 7% or less than that. What is the penetration among the seller side? It's 1%. So India is not just this upper cream of the society, which is, people like you and I belong to. But India is very, very large, and a diverse segment of users and diverse segments of merchants are there. And we need to enable all of them to be digitally present and engage in transaction among themselves of the products they like at the service level they want and the kind of delivery schedules they want, and so on and so forth. So what ONDC will enable is, like in the case of physical market, a disciplined marketplace where all segments of sellers and buyers can come together. So in that sense, this is, like we started with saying, it's a democratization. And the large players, in a way, even if I'm in their place, may be uncomfortable because it's bringing more competition. But they understand that is going to be inevitable. And that's a line that we have taken as a country, that our marketplaces are going to be, democratic. And probably you might have seen international media in the recent past very keenly recognizing, acknowledging, and even waiting whether and how we are going to succeed, because they feel that it is going to be a global example.
Mr. Koshi, thanks so much for such a fascinating and candid chat on Tech Today. All of us tech geeks can only wish you all the best for the digital transformation journey that you are embarking upon.
Thank you.
Now, a lot of us are working from home with our work from home workstations, and then most of us on the move have these devices that we want to use as travel companions. So those could be magic keyboards, or then the fancy big work from home setups with other keyboards. Wireless keyboards are really helpful as well. What if I told you there's a premium flagship keyboard by Logitech, and Shivan has discovered a few cool features along with that device? Over to you, Shivan.
So keyboards is an essential part of any PC experience, right? But today we have this keyboard, which is essentially Logitech's first entry to mechanical keyboards for its premium MX Office series. Now, you can use this keyboard across 3 different devices, and there are a lot more things that they have offered, but at the same time, there are a few things which take away from the experience completely. I'm going to get into it one by one, tell you whether it's worth it or not. Since it operates on battery, they have incorporated certain sensors on the keyboard. So the basic white backlight that you get on this keyboard, it will not remain on. There are sensors on this. As soon as you remove your hands from the keyboard, the lights go off. As soon as you bring your hands back on, the lights come back on. Now, it is a good way to save battery, but there is a flip side to it, which I found out in my use with it. I'll get back to it in a bit. So there is Bluetooth connectivity that you're getting with this keyboard, and you also get a bolt receiver. In combination, you can actually connect it with 3 different devices. And as of now, I've connected it with my laptop and I've connected it with my phone. To switch between the different devices, all I need to do is long press for about 3 seconds on any one of these keys, and they are labeled as 1, 2, and 3. One at a time, I can connect with either. So if you use it with the Logitech Flow software feature, you can use one keyboard across multiple computers. Apart from the regular keys, you also get an option of a key right there in the keyboard. Press on it and you can take a screenshot. There is another key which enables voice dictation. You just need to press it down once and the computer will start taking in voice notes from you. The mic gets activated. Then there is another key which helps activate emojis if you need to add them to any kind of document or whatever you're typing. I had spoken about proximity sensors earlier and I had mentioned that I'll come back to it. Now, the problem I faced here was, okay, I remove my hands from the keyboard, the lights go out. It helps save battery, agreed. But the problem here is, a lot of times it happened with me that, when I bring my hands back onto the keyboard, I am still under the impression that caps lock is switched off. And I'm typing, looking at the keyboard, and I've not noticed that everything I'm writing is caps has become small and small has become caps. And now I'm rewriting everything. At the same time, the keys I found to be closer to each other than a regular membrane keyboard would have. So a lot of times I'm ending up having a lot of typos. That means I have to go back to whatever I've written and then correct it. So these were some drawbacks, and when you're working in an environment when you really can't afford to waste time, then I think initially it took me some time to get used to it, and that for me was a problem. So overall, I think there are a lot of advantages with this keyboard. There are a lot of shortcuts that you're getting through the keyboard, and of course the chance to connect with several other devices at the same time is a big boon. But at the same time, there are certain drawbacks which really take away from the entire user experience. At least for me, that has been my verdict.
Well, last week I told you were in for a surprise in the next episode, and that's why we came here to Samsung Galaxy Unpacked in Bengaluru. Did you like the Flip? Did you like the Fold? Or any of the other devices that we actually showcased on the show? Or our conversation with the CEO at ONDC. Some really cool things happening in the tech world. And of course, we have all of them here on Tech Today. If you've enjoyed the show, do let us know on our social media handles. This is your host, Aayush Ailawadi, saying thanks for watching and goodbye for now.
Well, after COVID, there are concerns of a new virus raising its ugly head in China. This is called the Lungia Virus. 35 new cases of the Lungia Virus have been reported in China. The novel Lungia Virus is also called the Lungia Virus. The virus is likely to have jumped into humans from animals, especially shrews. So what really is the Lungia Virus, and is this a new virus? Lungia Virus is an example of a zoonotic henipavirus. It is suspected to have spread from animals to zoos via a process known as zoonosis. Human-to-human transmission of Lungia virus has not been observed yet. According to test results from more than 24 wild animals, the shrew, a small mole-like mammal, may be a natural host for this virus. A zoonotic disease is an infectious disease transmitted between species, either from animals to humans or from humans to animals. Examples of zoonotic viruses include COVID-19 and monkeypox. The Hendra virus is also an example of a zoonotic infection. In the case of Lungia virus, what is clear is that human-to-human transmission has not been seen, but animal-to-human transmission has been noted already in China. Reportedly, the early patients with the virus are mainly farmers. These patients have reported symptoms like fatigue, cough, loss of appetite, muscle pain, nausea, headache and vomiting. Others have shown signs of blood cell abnormalities as well as signs of liver and kidney damage. So how was the Lungia virus first discovered? In eastern China, surveillance testing on patients with fever and a recent history of animal exposure led to the discovery of the Lungia virus. It was found in the throat swab of one of the patients, and the patient was then isolated. So far, this infection has not led to any deaths. There is also no vaccine available to counter this virus.